If a visitor from a century ago were to encounter our modern assortment of peculiar toys, they might find themselves perplexed. Yet they would recognize the age-old impulse to display one's status. Across history, individuals have sought out symbols of their standing in society. While gold and jewels have often served this purpose, there have also been instances where the wealthy and influential have employed a curious array of items to showcase their affluence in bygone eras. So let's explore the most weirdest status symbols throughout history. Before we start, please support my channel by clicking like and subscribe buttons. Tulips. The tulip's significance predates its arrival in Western Europe during the 16th century. Originating in the Middle East, it was first cultivated in Persia around the 11th century. In the Ottoman Empire, sultans adorned their turbans with tulips as symbols of prestige, a tradition that contributed to its name, tulipum, derived from the Turkish pronunciation of turban. Despite being highly esteemed during the Ottoman era, tulips were subject to strict regulations, with sales beyond Constantinople's city limits punishable by exile. Nevertheless, tulip bulbs found their way to Europe, particularly to Vienna, where the head gardener at the Austrian emperor's residence, Carolus Clusius, began cultivating them and spreading interest through his writings. Clusius's move to the Netherlands further fueled the tulip's prominence, leading to the infamous tulip mania in Amsterdam during the mid-1630s, characterized by exorbitant prices driven by fervent demand for this emblem of status. Long pointed shoes. During the late Middle Ages, the Krakow, also known as the poulain due to its pointed tip, emerged as a fashionable footwear choice. These shoes boasted tips ranging from 6 to 24 inches in length. Like many other status symbols of the time, these extravagant shoes served as a visual indicator of wealth, as their impractical design suggested that the wearer was affluent enough to avoid manual labor. Such was the association between social standing and shoe length that Edward III of England implemented regulations governing their dimensions. Commoners were restricted to shoes with tips no longer than 6 inches, while gentlemen were permitted 15-inch tips. Nobility, on the other hand, enjoyed the privilege of wearing even longer tips, further emphasizing their elevated status. Wigs. Throughout history, the donning of striking wigs has remained a prevalent practice across diverse societies. In ancient Egypt, one's societal status was discerned through the material composing their wig. Those of higher rank sported wigs fashioned from human hair, while those of lower stature wore ones made from wool or plant fibers. The trend of wearing wigs gained momentum in Western Europe during the Renaissance, notably spurred by the efforts of the prematurely balding French monarch Louis XIV to maintain the appearance of a full head of hair. Following his lead, the French nobility and his English relative Charles II embraced wig wearing. In Georgian England, particularly in the latter half of the 18th century, wigs became a definitive marker of social standing. A basic wig, affordable for the average middle-class Londoner, cost roughly a week's wages, while wealthier individuals opted for higher quality pieces, some fetching prices equivalent to £9,000 in today's currency. This era gave rise to the term bigwig, as a nod to the prominence of wig-wearing elites. Sugar. Sugar made its European debut during the Middle Ages, traversing from the Middle East and swiftly garnering immense value. Its cultivation incurred substantial expenses, primarily stemming from labor and transportation, rendering it a luxury accessible primarily to the upper echelons of European society. Bolstered by its purported medicinal virtues, sugar became a coveted commodity, prompting affluent individuals to commission confectioners to craft extravagant treats for the amusement of aristocratic revelers. Even with the advent of large-scale sugar plantations in the colonial West Indies, the price of sugar remained relatively stable, thus prohibiting access for those situated lower on the social ladder, at least in the initial stages. The affluent continued to amass greater quantities, reinforcing their social status. Remarkably, chronic tooth decay was paradoxically embraced as a testament to significant and ostensibly commendable sugar consumption. Collars and cuffs. During the 16th and 17th centuries, there was a prevailing belief that water was a carrier of illness, leading people to seek alternative methods of cleanliness. Enter shirts and underwear, hailed as superior alternatives. A commentator in 1626 extolled the virtues of the shirt, declaring it to be more effective at maintaining cleanliness than the steam baths of antiquity, which lacked the convenience of linen. While one couldn't visibly display their linen undergarments to prove their cleanliness, pristine white collars and cuffs became symbols of both bodily and mental purity. Consequently, a wealthy Tudor would never permit their portrait to be devoid of these symbols of cleanliness. Pineapples. Once upon a time, the pineapple was a symbol of rarity and luxury, unlike today when it's easily found in any store. Charles II played a significant role in this, using pineapples to showcase his power across various fronts. In 1668, during tensions between Britain and France over St. Kitts, Charles II hosted the French ambassador for dinner. The centerpiece was a fruit pyramid, crowned by a pineapple. This fruit, newly introduced to Britain, was specially imported from Barbados at Charles's request. He saw it as a symbol of Britain's global influence, referring to it as King Pine. Inspired by the king's admiration, wealthy circles in Britain began growing pineapples during the Georgian era, despite the challenging climate. These fruits came with a hefty price tag, around £60, equivalent to roughly £11,000 today. Instead of consuming them, owners displayed them at social gatherings until they spoiled. Carrying a pineapple became a status symbol, leading to instances of theft. Cacao beans. Around 1000 BC, cacao beans held value as currency in Mesoamerican culture. It wasn't until the early 16th century that they made their debut in Europe, primarily as the foundation for drinking chocolate. While the Aztec and Maya societies embraced this beverage across all social classes, in Europe, it remained a luxury indulgence exclusive to the elite. The middle classes showed a preference for coffee, while the lower classes continued their reliance on alcohol. In the 17th century, Louis XIV of France played a pivotal role in popularizing drinking chocolate within the French court. As time progressed, it became a symbol of social ascent for the aspiring bourgeoisie seeking elevated status. However, as chocolate gained broader appeal and cacao trees were introduced to regions like the West Indies and West Africa, it gradually shed its exclusivity and ceased to be the exclusive privilege of the aristocracy. Board games. In modern times, board games are a ubiquitous feature in households, typically crafted from inexpensive materials like plastic and cardboard. However, this accessibility wasn't always the norm. In ancient Egypt and the Middle East, owning board games, especially those made from the finest materials, symbolized one's status and importance in society. These games were not only status symbols, but also served as gifts, used to influence those in power or included in royal burials. Queen Nefertari of Egypt possessed a lavishly adorned version of the Senate board game during her lifetime. Another popular game, known as the Royal Game of Ver in the 20th century, following its discovery in southern Iraq, bore similarities to backgammon. British archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley unearthed 5 Royal Game of Ver boards during excavations in the 1920s and 1930s. The most ornate example, likely belonging to someone of high rank, featured embellishments such as shells, red limestone, and lapis lazuli, a blue rock prized for its rarity and beauty. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to support my channel by clicking like and subscribe buttons.